必须动手了。
罗峰，
边境大会
现在不是逞英雄的时候。
人就赢了。你们这些异族是强者无法灭掉的。我贪婪，真是谢谢你了。野心、欲望，一起去！今日死的越多越好。死吧！对不起。
Hello everyone, welcome to the Alrasta channel. Here I will share spoilers for episode 189 of SwallowedStar. Remember, this is based on the novel, so it won't be 100% the same as the Donghua version. There may be similarities with previous spoiler videos, but I will provide better explanations than before. Alright, without further ado, let's get right into the story. Continuing from episode 188. After Luofeng and Star Fantasy escape the enemy team's pursuit, Ye Chen tries his best to block them. However, Kang Jin will not allow that to happen. In desperation, he decides to burn his own immortal power, an act that is even more terrifying considering his level as a peak immortal king. Then a green light flashes from his entire body, while terrifying energy fills the room, causing everyone to panic and try to escape. But it's too late. With unavoidable speed, Kang Jin attacks Ye Chen, who is closest to him. A giant palm struck Ye Chen's head, and in an instant, one of the strongest warriors in Luofeng's team vanished into ash. The battle that initially seemed to be won by the human race team turned into a nightmare when Kang Jin, who had turned into a monster, showed the true power of a peak immortal king who risked his own life. The chaos reached its peak when Ye Chen, severely wounded by Kang Jin's attack, finally decided to destroy himself. Even though only 50% of his immortal body remained after Kang Jin's attack, the resulting explosion still had the power equivalent to half that of a peak immortal king. Enough to kill an immortal king and injure other peak immortal kings. The arrogant Kang Jin refused to retreat and instead taunted Ye Chen, forcing Ye Chen to launch his final attack while vowing to return for revenge. Ye Chen's powerful explosion created a circular crater 60 kilometers in diameter, destroying most of the tower's internal structure, although its outer walls, made of F-grade metal, remained intact. In the destruction, Ziwei Ka was instantly reduced to ashes due to his mid-level immortal king status, while Star Fantasy and Purple Clock managed to survive despite being severely injured and losing part of their immortal bodies. Luofeng once again demonstrated his extraordinary defense by surviving the explosion thanks to the protection of his wings. After the destruction subsided, Star Fantasy communicated with Luofeng about the great loss they had suffered with Ye Chen's death. However, Star Fantasy explained that as a human, Ye Chen was fortunate to be revived by the Universe Master of the human race, one of the 4 peak races in the galaxy. This resurrection process came at a high price, and Ye Chen would have to fight for humanity for a very long time as compensation. But at least, he was not permanently dead like other races that did not have a Universe Master. Purple Clock was furious at Kang Jin for forcing Ye Chen to destroy himself, which also killed Ziwei Ka. However, Kang Jin did not care, and instead kept the world ring and valuable items belonging to the 2 immortal kings who had died. He then chased after Luofeng, who was trying to escape through the tower passage, while Purple Clock chased after him from behind. Star Fantasy, realizing that she could not defeat Kang Jin in her current condition, chose to take a different path to save herself. In the tower control room, the leaders of the Yanji race, who had been watching the battle tensely, began to panic when they saw Kang Jin picking up the tokens that had fallen from the bodies of the dead Ye Chen and Ziwei Ka. These tokens were essential for opening the inheritance chamber that contained their greatest treasures. Qiuqi Ka and his 3 companions realized that if the intruders managed to escape and teleport away with the tokens, they would never be able to access the treasure room again. With the situation becoming increasingly dire, Elder Qiuqi Ka finally gave the order to his troops. It was time for the Yanji race to intervene directly in this battle. In a state of panic, Luofeng flew as fast as lightning through the tower passageway while being pursued by Kang Jin and Purple Clock. Despite his superior speed, Luofeng struggled, because Kang Jin continuously launched lightning bolts from his eyes, forming countless electric webs that repeatedly slowed his movements. The narrow passageway also prevented Luofeng from using the full power of the golden-horned behemoth. Kang Jin was frustrated because even though he managed to close the distance little by little, he couldn't completely catch up with the elusive Luofeng. Meanwhile, Purple Clock, who was following behind, began to plan something in his mind. He was angry at Kang Jin for using Ye Chen to kill Si Weika, a fellow member of the Chi Chang race. Even though they were affiliated with the robot race and couldn't kill each other due to strict rules that would get them hunted down if they broke them, Purple Clock was still upset with Kang Jin's attitude of wanting to control the treasure all by himself. When Luofeng reached the exit of the tower's core area, he was surprised to find 6 purple-colored armless steel layers floating and blocking the 6 exit paths. The creature turned out to be Qiuqi-Ka, a Yanji race warrior with peak Immortal king power. When Luofeng tried to break through, the giant arms easily blocked him, forcing everyone, Luofeng, Tang Jin, Purple Clock, and Star Fantasy, who had arrived later, to gather in one place. Qiuqi-Ka then revealed the shocking truth that he had been watching their entire battle from the control room. He admitted that the 3 treasure chests they had fought over were actually empty, just bait to make the intruders kill each other. The first treasure room had indeed been open for a long time, and all its contents had been taken. The immortal kings of the human and robot races who had sacrificed part of their immortal bodies, including the deceased Ye Chen and Si Weika, had actually been fighting over empty chests. However, the real plot twist came when Qiuqi-Ka revealed that there was still real treasure hidden in a separate secret room. This room required 2 conditions to be opened. There must be a member of the Yanji race, and a special token held by a warrior who had previously died. Qiuqi-Ka offered a deal. He needed the token now held by Kang Jin to open the secret room, and in return, he only asked for half of the actual treasure. Without this cooperation, neither side could obtain the true treasure, creating a situation of mutual dependence that forced them to negotiate despite their mutual distrust. When everyone gathered at the tower's exit, Luofeng carefully considered the credibility of Qiuqi-Ka's words. He concluded there were 2 possibilities. First, Qiuqi-Ka genuinely needed the token to open the true treasure room and wanted to cooperate. Or second, this was all a revenge plan by survivors of a destroyed race who had obtained the treasure long ago. Considering the trauma that someone whose race had been destroyed might experience, Luofeng understood the potential for deep hatred that could drive someone to devise a plan of slaughter. Kang Jin, who had burned part of his immortal body, was determined to obtain the tower's treasures by any means necessary. He would not be satisfied with just the riches of Ye Chen and Si Weika, who had already been killed. Purple Clock, despite hating Kang Jin's greedy attitude of wanting to take 80% of the share, up from 70% after Ti Weika's death, still decided to cooperate because he realized that only Kang Jin had enough power to deal with this dangerous situation. Seeing the greed of the intruders, Qiuqi-Ka was relieved that his plan was going as expected. Actually, he hoped to stop Star Fantasy himself using their 4 warriors on separate paths, but since there was no suitable path, he was forced to take the risk of appearing alone at the exit. He understood that greed and ambition were weaknesses that could not be eliminated from a warrior, and he took advantage of this to control the situation. After all parties agreed to work together, they moved towards the true treasure room with Qiuqi-Ka surrounded by the 4 intruders as a precaution. Kang Jin wisely requested this arrangement to avoid the possibility of betrayal. Along the way, Qiuqi-Ka revealed several hidden passages that could only be opened by pushing camouflaged walls, proving his deep knowledge of the tower's structure. In the control room, 3 other Yanji soldiers, Pu Ai, Ladimo, and Menbu, anxiously monitored Qiuqi-Ka's dangerous mission. They understood that this was their last chance to obtain their race's inheritance, and its success depended not only on Qiuqi-Ka's skills, but also on luck, given the intruder's intelligence and strength. Finally, they arrived at a large hall with a diameter of 10 kilometers with smooth walls covered in intricate carvings. Qiuqi-Ka then activated a secret mechanism with his 6 palms, causing the walls to separate and reveal a 10-kilometer wide path. At the end of the 100-meter path, they found a door covered in golden light and made of extremely valuable G-class metal, worth hundreds of millions of yuan for the door alone. Seeing this splendor, the intruders became even more convinced that the treasure behind the door must be of extraordinary value, making Kang Jin feel that the sacrifice of burning his immortal power was very worthwhile. Now Qiu Qika asked Kang Jin for a token to open the final door to the true treasure room, creating a critical moment where all parties had to decide how far they trusted each other. When it came time to hand over the token to open the true treasure room, Kang Jin and the other intruders exchanged hesitant glances. They realized that once the token was handed over to Qiu Qika, it would be very difficult to get it back. Qiu Qika mocked their hesitation, saying that he couldn't forcibly seize the token, but without their cooperation, the treasure room would never be opened. Tang Jin decided to test Qiu Qika's claim by having Purple Clock try to open the door first, using various methods, pushing, pouring in eternal energy, even using the token, but all his efforts failed. Seeing Purple Clock frustrated at not being able to open the door at all, while Qiu Qika continued to mock their efforts, Kang Jin finally decided to hand over the first token to Qiu Qika. As soon as Qiu Qika received the token, he immediately merged with it and connected to the tower's AI system. He finally became the full ruler of the tower, after years of only having limited access to the control room. Elsewhere, his three colleagues in the control room, Pu Ai, La Dimo, and Membu, celebrated joyfully when they were able to communicate with him through the tower's telecommunications system, signaling that their plan was halfway successful. However, when Qiu Qika tried to open the treasure room door, it turned out that one token was not enough. He needed 2 tokens to activate the multi-layered security system. He explained that only the former leaders knew this detail and that the arrangement was probably made to prevent greedy leaders from acting on their own. Tang Jin reluctantly handed over the second token, and this time the giant golden door finally opened after both tokens were used together. The actual treasure room turned out to be 20 by 20 by 10 meters in size, made entirely of G-class metal and covered with mysterious carvings. In the center of the room were 12 ancient treasure chests locked with chains, containing the true wealth of the Yanji race. Qiu Qika rushed towards the chests, but Kang Jin immediately attacked him with a lightning spear and tried to seize the treasure by force. It turned out that the chests were protected by a special encryption that even the Immortal Warrior King could not destroy with physical force. The situation reached a critical point when Qiu Qika finally revealed his true plan. He ordered the tower's AI to close the treasure room door, trapping everyone inside. When Kang Jin flew into a rage and stabbed him into the wall with his spear, Qiu Qika calmly suggested that they could get out by teleporting through their God Country transmission. However, this suggestion actually revealed his evil intentions because no one would want to leave the treasure room without getting anything, and teleporting in front of the enemy would make them very vulnerable. Luofeng, who had the strongest defense, observed the situation calmly, realizing that Qiu Qika had finally shown his true colors and that they were all now trapped in a trap that he had carefully planned. The situation in the treasure room turned into a nightmare when Qiu Qika revealed his true intentions. While the intruders were still trapped inside the room made of G-class metal with mysterious engravings that were impossible to penetrate, outside the room, Menbu and La Dimo managed to take the 2 tokens attached to the outside of the door. They cried sadly at having to leave their elder trapped inside, but Qiu Qika ordered them to leave immediately and secure the true inheritance in the 3rd room. It was revealed that Qiu Qika's entire plan was a mission of sacrifice. He deliberately lured the intruders into the 2nd treasure room, not the real treasure, to trap them, while his companions could take the tokens and access the true inheritance room containing the Yanji race's most important techniques and treasures. This plan required great luck, and the intruders had to trust him and follow him inside, paying no attention to the tokens attached to the outer door. In the control room, Pu Ai watched with a mixture of pain and excitement as the plan was successfully executed. Qiu Qika deliberately put himself in the danger by entering the room first, because if he didn't enter, the intruders wouldn't follow and the plan would fail completely. It was a necessary sacrifice for the survival of their nearly extinct race. When Kang Jin interrogated and threatened him, Qiu Qika calmly revealed that he did indeed want to die. He had lived too long in suffering after their race faced extinction, and he was tired of fighting alone. He even mentioned the name of his lover, Marcia, who had died long ago, and said that he was ready to join her in eternal sleep. The intruders realized that this native warrior had lost his mind due to deep trauma. Kyo-hee Kai then destroyed himself with the full power of a peak Immortal King. An explosion equivalent to 1,000,000 world masters attacking simultaneously filled the narrow space. Star Fantasy and Purple Clock fought desperately to survive, while Luofeng relied on Shuwu's wings and his silver armor for protection. Although his Cloud Contact Vine armor was completely destroyed and 80% of his body was damaged, he managed to survive and quickly recover. Meanwhile, Kang Jin coldly stood by and allowed his body to be destroyed before regenerating, showing absolute confidence in his ability to survive. In the control room, the 3 remaining survivors, Pu Ai, Menbu, and La Demo, wept over the loss of their spiritual leader, who had guided and supported them for trillions of years. The tower's AI then relayed Huchika's final message, revealing that he had chosen to escape from the suffering of his life. He was certain that the intruders would eventually teleport out through their God Country transmission, and when that happened, his 3 companions could enter to retrieve the remaining treasure chest. With the sacrifice of his life, Huchika had given the nearly extinct Yanji race one last chance to rise again with the complete legacy of their ancestors. After Huchika's heroic death, the 3 survivors of the Yanji race in the control room vowed not to waste their elder's sacrifice. Pu Ai explained their strategy, to wait for the intruders to teleport out through their God Country. Then they could go in and take the remaining treasure chests. They were confident that the intruders would eventually give up because they couldn't open the chests, which were locked with the Yanji race's special security system. Inside the treasure room, the situation became increasingly tense after Huchika's explosion. Star Fantasy suffered severe injuries, with more than 50% of his immortal body destroyed and was nearly comatose, while Purple Clock appeared completely unharmed, which was suspicious considering the power of the explosion in such a confined space. Kang Jin began to suspect Purple Clock because of his unreasonable survival ability and realized that this Chi Chang race warrior must have a hidden trump card that had not yet been revealed. When all attempts to open the treasure chest failed completely, Kang Jin began to show his true colors. He ordered the other 3 intruders to teleport out first, which was clearly a trap, as it would reveal the location of their God Country transmission and allow Kang Jin to attack the human race team in his own God Country territory. Purple Clock, Star Fantasy, and Luofeng refused and insisted that the strongest should leave first, creating an unspoken alliance against Kang Jin. The tension reached its peak when Kang Jin threatened to kill anyone who betrayed him. Purple Clock tried to bluff by activating a virtual world broadcast to record everything as evidence, but Kang Jin revealed that he had manipulated the light and sound around them, rendering any recording invalid as evidence. The advanced tower also blocked all signals, rendering Purple Clock's threat futile. Kang Jin then revealed his true intentions. Even if he couldn't obtain the main treasure, he planned to kill the other 3 intruders and take all their wealth as compensation. He mocked Star Fantasy, who was already severely injured and posed no threat even if she committed self-destruction, then focused his attention on Luofeng and Purple Clock, who clearly possessed valuable treasures or abilities. The situation reached a critical point when Purple Clock, in desperation, brandished a black crystal that emitted terrifying energy, threatening to bring them all down together if forced, creating a deadly standoff in the locked treasure room with 4 immortal kings who distrusted each other and were ready for a life-and-death battle. The tension reached its peak when Purple Clock brandished the Fire God Origin Crystal, A812, worth more than 12 billion points, the ultimate weapon that had saved his life countless times. Tong Jin, who recognized the crystal, laughed mockingly, because even though the crystal had a power equivalent to 3 times that of a peaked Immortal King's explosion, it was still not enough to kill him. In such a confined space, the crystal could only destroy 5 to 10% of his immortal body, which was not a serious threat to an Immortal King of Tong Jin's caliber. Realizing that their threat was not frightening enough, Kang Jin decided to end the fight quickly. He began to burn part of his immortal body and prepared to kill all 3 opponents at once with minimal cost. In desperation, the severely injured Star Fantasy burned her entire immortal body and self-destructed, but the explosion only had 20 to 30% of the power of Huchika's previous explosion and had almost no effect on Kang Jin. After Star Fantasy's death, Purple Clock finally revealed the trump card he had been hiding all this time. He took out a mysterious ancient clock covered with unknown engravings. A true universe venerable level treasure that was far more powerful than anything Luofeng had ever seen before. The clock quickly expanded and engulfed the entire 16-meter diameter room, trapping Kang Jin and Luofeng inside with no room to escape. Purple Clock revealed that he had used this ancient clock to kill 2 peak immortal kings and 1 border immortal king earlier. All this time, he had hidden his true abilities and let everyone think that the fire clock and purple membrane were his main weapons. He then placed the Fire God Origin Crystal, A812, inside the clock and activated it, creating a controlled and focused explosion, whose power was increased tenfold due to the ancient clock's focusing effect. This deadly combination of the ancient clock and the Fire God Origin Crystal was designed to kill even a limit immortal king, unless the target had king-level armor or treasures equivalent to the ancient clock. Purple Clock, who had been planning this for a long time, dreamed of the riches he would obtain after killing Kang Jin and Luofeng. Kang Jin's wealth from the immortal kings who had been killed before, plus Luofeng's mysterious defensive treasure that allowed him to survive deadly attacks. In his greed, Purple Clock was convinced that this time he would be the sole survivor and claim all the treasures for himself. In the control room, the 3 survivors of the Yanji race, Hu Ai, La Dimo, and Menbu, watched the battle with eyes burning with hatred. They cheered joyfully as the intruders killed each other, because to them, all other races were enemies that must be destroyed. This deep hatred stemmed from a past tragedy when their race was nearly wiped out by the 4 supreme races who had built a battlefield in their territory. For those powerful races, destroying the Yanji race was like stepping on ants, but for the survivors, it was an unforgettable disaster. Inside the ancient purple clock, the explosion of the Fire God Origin Crystal, A812, was directed straight at Kang Jin with 10-fold increased power. Even though Kang Jin had burned 3% of his immortal body to prepare for battle, he did not have time to do anything before he was caught in the deadly trap. The explosion, with a power equivalent to 30 times that of a peak immortal king, hit him unavoidably, and even though he tried to burn more immortal energy to survive, he realized that this was the end for him. In his last moments, Kang Jin remembered his disciples and his master, hoping that one day he would be revived and be able to meet them again. However, instead of giving up, he chose to destroy himself in despair, shouting at Purple Clock that they would die together. The self-destruction explosion of a peak immortal king like Kang Jin created a force equivalent to that of a giant fire god origin, combining with the initial explosion to become an extraordinary destructive force. Purple Clock, who was initially confident that he could control the situation with his ancient clock, suddenly panicked when he realized that Kang Jin's explosion would spread in all directions and could no longer be controlled. In desperation, he burned nearly 26% of his immortal body, a huge loss, to try to direct the combined force of the 2 explosions downward toward the floor of the room. Although he managed to save himself from death, his efforts created an attack with more than 100 times the power that hit the floor of the treasure room. The tremendous force pierced through the strong metal floor and created a 6,000-kilometer deep cave, destroying everything in its path. The 12 treasure chest chains were thrown far away, and Kang Jin's world ring was destroyed, releasing all the wealth of the immortal kings he had previously killed. Luofeng, who was hit by about 50% of the explosion's power, managed to survive by hiding his main body in the internal world and protecting his world ring inside Shu Wu's wings. Meanwhile, Purple Clock, despite suffering great losses from burning his immortal power, felt satisfied because he was convinced that all the treasures were now his, including Kang Jin's wealth, Luofeng's mysterious defensive treasures, and the chain chest that had been released from their bonds. The powerful explosion created a straight trench 6,000 kilometers long, but its narrow diameter meant that most of the treasures did not fall directly, but bounced off the sides like shards of glass. Although the scene was chaotic, Purple Clock was excited to see the scattered riches, like cash falling from the sky. He had already planned to buy 2 more Fire God Origin crystals, a training slot on Flame God Mountain, and various recovery treasures with the wealth he would obtain. While Purple Clock was busy collecting treasures from above, Luofeng, in the form of a Mosha metal fragment, was quietly collecting various valuable items from below. He managed to secure Shu Wu's wings in his world ring, the most important chain chests, the undamaged Kang Jin Thunder Spear, and various other treasures, including rings from Kang Jin's destroyed world ring. With both parties gathering from different directions, they were unaware of each other's presence. Purple Clock began to panic when he couldn't find the most valuable treasure chests, which he believed were worth more than all the other treasures combined. He was also curious about Luofeng's mysterious defensive treasure that allowed the human to survive deadly attacks. While trying to store the metal fragment he found, his space ring rejected the item, and suddenly a black shadow appeared. Luofeng with silver wings, smiling and thanking him. In the control room, the 3 survivors of the Yanji race were shocked to see Luofeng survive a battle that even killed the much stronger Kang Jin. They realized that the human race was the true winner of this treasure hunt, having secured most of the riches, including the most important chests. Although regretful at the loss of the physical treasure, Hu Ai, now their leader, realized that they had gained something more important, the legacy of their race's techniques and knowledge. Hu Ai ordered the destruction of the tower, which was already 80% damaged by the explosion, and then destroyed the space route to prevent other intruders from coming. When they returned to their god country, Hu Ai announced the heroic death of Qiu Chi Ka to the other immortal kings. Despite mourning the loss of their elder, all the survivors felt new hope because their race's complete legacy had been successfully secured. With countless ancient techniques, the nearly extinct Yanji race now had the foundation to rise again and grow as strong as they once were, fulfilling Qiu Chika's final sacrifice of risking his life for the future of his people. So what happens next? Alright, thank you for watching until the end, and don't forget to support this channel with likes, subscribe, and comments. That's all from me. Bye.